Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Eric Johnston here. My very special guest today is a aviation photographer that many of you guys have probably seen his work, and you may or may not know that he's he's the guy actually behind the camera. But Doug Glover, coming to us, I believe, from the East Coast, and he's been a wealth of knowledge for me as far as anything that if I've ever had a question about anything aviation photography related, I can go to Doug, and he's always got some nugget of information to pass my way, and he's always been very generous about it. So how you doing, Doug?
Doing great, Eric. Good to talk to you tonight.
You too, man. Thanks for taking the time out and spending with us today.
Yeah, no worries. I noticed you didn't say a nugget of useful information, so I took note of that.
I take what I can get.
Exactly. He'll at least talk to me. Awesome. Right. Awesome.
So where is it that you do live?
Beautiful Beaufort, South Carolina, which if you don't know where that is, I can either describe it as halfway between Charleston, South Carolina and Savannah, Georgia, in the middle of nowhere. Or if you know where the Marine Corps boot camp of Parris Island is, it's on the same chunk of land as Parris Island. So
interesting. So let's kind of get into it. How old were you when you got into photography?
I was in my teens. You know, my dad had done a lot of photography and kind of had a very nice Nikon rig that he used. I wanted to get into photography, and of course he wasn't willing to let me necessarily use his full time. So he said, "Hey, you know, you've got a job. You're in high school. You can go. You can pay for half your camera. I'll pay for the other half." And so I went out and got a fairly cheap Minolta Maxim SLR and just kind of started learning.
So, how old were you then? You said
in my teens. I'd say I was probably 13, 14, somewhere in there.
13, 14. That's cool. It was probably about the same. I think maybe 11, maybe 12. And my dad, I went to my dad. He taught, I told Dad, I want you to teach me how to take pictures. And he goes, well, I'll teach you how to take care of the camera. Yeah. And if you can prove to me that you can not break it, then I'll give you your first camera.
No. I pretty much, my dad taught me on his Nikon F mount, and that was about all. I could touch it, and then I had to go get my own. So he was obviously very protective of his that he had bought in Japan in the 1960s, and enjoyed using it a lot. So it was kind of funny. I had to fend for myself there.
I got your website pulled up here. This is your website, Fox 3 Photography.
Absolutely. Yep.
Now I noticed you got a lot of F-18 stuff on there.
Yeah, what's up with those F-18s? Nobody likes F-18s anymore. Who cares?
Yeah,
those are old airplanes.
They're cool. Hey, the Blues are about to start getting the Super Hornets, aren't they?
They are. So the rumor is, I shouldn't say rumor. The plan is next year. We'll see with all the changes and things if it still goes forward that way.
That'd be cool.
That would be neat.
That'll be so cool to see a Super Hornet in that paint scheme.
Yeah, it'll be neat. You'll see how much bigger the Super Hornet really is when you get up close to that.
So what kind of equipment are you sporting? Are you a Nikon guy, Canon, Sony?
I'm a Nikon guy. I don't care. I don't care what people shoot. It's one of those funny things that I'm not passionate about certain brands. I love Nikon. Nikon's taking great care of me. The guys at Nikon Professional Services have 9 times out of 10 when I've asked been right there to supply me with something to use. But I kind of chose a Nikon DSLR when I got into digital. In the early 2000s, and that kind of drove everything. I didn't want to change at that point because I bought some nice lenses. I kept trying different types of Nikon bodies, but I'd invested so much after a while in the glass that there wasn't much of a point to switch. Nothing else, really fit the bill.
Yeah, I grew up around Canon, and I think that's a lot of it as far as what's just what you feel comfortable with.
Absolutely.
And what's funny though, because what do you think about this? Because it seems like for years it was always Canon, Nikon, kind of went up, and then Sony kind of came out and goes, bam.
Yes.
And holy cow.
I have yet to shoot one. I've wanted to, but I'll be honest, I made a transition to the Nikon Z series, so they were in all my money.
Right?
Immediately went down that road. So I didn't get to dabble with the Sony as much as I'd like. And, once again, sometimes it's sticking to the horse that you're with. I had really good service from NPS and had some really good friends that worked with NPS. And so I was like, do I really want to build a whole new relationship with Sony? And in the process, possibly, hack off my Nikon friends that have really fought for me to get early access to some of this gear and sent me things and not necessarily asked for it back immediately. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, I'll experiment with them, but I'm not going to cut my ties to Nikon just to go try something.
I don't blame you. I've decided that I want to switch over to Sony but just like you said, there's a cost to be had.
Oh, there is. And I've had good friends of mine, Ed Derrick, who was a embed with some Marine units that I was with. He's made the transition, and he talked about how expensive it was for him to go from being a Canon shooter to a Nikon shooter. And I think he's actually switched twice because of different environmental considerations and things where one camera worked better than the other. And he's like, it's terrible. It's horrible. It's a lot of money you just never see again.
Right. Now, there are adapters, I think, that I can use my Canon glass with the Sony bodies.
With Sony, correct.
I've
never tried it.
Neither have I. From what I've heard, they work, but not as well as Sony native lens, which makes
Absolutely.
sense. You know,
well, and even on the Z series that I use, their adapter from the Nikon F mount lenses to the Z most of the time work well. I've had one or two lenses that haven't worked well, and sometimes that's because it's a rental lens that's pretty beat up and the contacts aren't mating well. There's a lot of different things that can go on there. So anytime you stick an adapter between your lens and the camera, you're always rolling the dice a little bit on will you have the capability.
Makes sense. Now, so whenever you got started, it was pretty much right into aviation photography?
Well, no, I just started kind of, I'll say, generic photography. I shot a lot of different things, shot landscape, shot a little bit of portraiture, which I learned at an early age. I hate portraiture. I shot a lot of different things, and then I really put photography down. I didn't do photography other than snapshot documentary kind of stuff while I was in college. And then after I got my government job after college, still kind of did a little bit of snapshot stuff. And it wasn't until probably, 1998, I'd say, that I really got back into, hey, I want to craft an image and I want to take the time and the effort to really put the right gear there and the right effort into crafting something more than just getting a quick record of what's going on.
Yeah. How old were you? It was around 98 that you said?
Right. So around the 1990s. So it was basically about 10 years after I'd graduated from high school. I was already through college into my career. And the cool things I was seeing in my career made me realize, hey, I really need to document them and document them better than just a snapshot. You really catch a lot of the beauty of things going on. And
thank God you did. You're a Marine, right?
Right. So both my wife and I are retired Marines.
Oh, your wife? Oh, that's cool. All right. Well, thank you, both of you guys.
I tell people that saying that's like thanking a gambler for playing the tables. We enjoyed it. We had a blast. It's there were always trying times, but we both really enjoyed our Marine Corps service.
I think it probably makes your relationship with each other stronger then too.
It sometimes it does. It also means there's things she already knows the answer to, and I can't fool her, and I can't say
you can't get it up.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, she knows all too well. She's like, that's not how that works. I'm like, okay, you're right.
How old were you guys when you met?
How old was I? I'm not going to answer that question. Let me put that. I'll tell you that I met early on in my career when I was a young lieutenant. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, gotcha. Now, speaking of your career in the Corps, what was your involvement with the Hornets and just everything? What did you do?
Well, so the funny part was when I first decided I wanted to be a Marine. My dad had been a Marine for 6-7 years, had gotten out of the Marine Corps before I was born, but, it kind of imbued his entire life with, he'd been a Marine and the things that the Marine Corps kind of, the values that it drove home. So I always knew I was going to serve. And I thought, I'll go in as an officer and I'll serve some time and I'll do something and get my degree and then go off and do the rest of my life. And then as I spent more time kind of doing aviation things and went to Florida State University for a year and really decided I wanted to be a Marine pilot, I thought I had everything lined up, and I roll into the U.S. Naval Academy and they tell me, you're not going to be able to be a pilot. And I'm like, well, if I'm not physically qualified for my eyes to be a pilot, I don't want to do this aviation thing. What idiot would sit in the back of an F-18 or an A-6 or some other airplane while some other guy's flying around? That's a terrible idea. Who'd want to do that? Fast forward to being a Marine officer at the basic school, 6 months of basic officer training. And they had too many pilot slots, couldn't give them all to qualified people. And they had just kicked out about a third of the navigators, the naval flight officers in the Marine Corps program down in Pensacola. They just hadn't cut the grades. They hadn't made it. And so they suddenly needed this glut of naval flight officers. They came back to me. And I'm like, man, I turned that down one time. That'd be pretty stupid to turn down flying in a jet again. So took my slot as a naval flight officer, went through flight school, selected F-18s to be a weapons systems officer, and never looked back from there. So 20 years of that, 17 years of which were operational flying time, which is probably why I left as a major and didn't make it to lieutenant colonel or keep going up the ranks. But spent a lot of time flying and truly loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Where did you go overseas at all?
So Japan was my first overseas posting, and then did Japan, Australia, Thailand, and then obviously did the tour through flying through Iraq, and then did ground tours in Afghanistan. So pretty much all over. Did a flying tour also in Hungary for Operation Allied Force in the middle of all that stuff.
Now, with all the flying that you did over there, as far as in combat zones, did you have any close calls or you got any kind of interesting stories to share about that?
There always are. And I'll just summarize it by saying that fortunately for all the times that I flew in operational combat environments, I flew with pilots that were good friends of mine, and probably not good for us is we sometimes were too dumb to be scared. And so I did find myself in a couple close calls, a couple situations where afterwards we're like, yeah, that wasn't too smart, was it? And some of them are lessons that we've all learned from Vietnam stories, where they say, don't go back to the target area in the same heading. The enemy won't be surprised. Don't get in a knife fight with a gun, things like that, So we, things like dueling with anti-aircraft artillery pieces, that's probably not a smart thing to do. But yeah, it was great flying. It was challenging. I can't minimize that. It was some really amazing times to fly. And you see some things that you realize aren't captured in aviation photography. And so there's still memories that I have, still vivid things that I've seen from those operational experiences that you just go, there's no way to capture the beauty and the terror both, at the same time.
Yeah, no kidding, man. When you were in Japan, where were you?
So the Marine Corps Air Station is in Iwakuni, Japan, just about a 45-minute train ride south of Hiroshima. And so a lot of my flying was around the Iwakuni area up to Tokyo. We would do deployments up to Misawa, which is up on the north end in Hokkaido. And then we'd also go down to Okinawa a lot, which is where a lot of the shots you're showing with the green ocean behind it. A lot of those.
Was that Okinawa?
Around. That's Okinawa. So there were cool. some ranges that we had that were on either side of the island, and we'd go out there, and the water's beautiful. I mean, that's why you have the Karamas are a big diving paradise that are out there, and to get to fly an F-18 over that kind of water, it's beautiful. You could have put anybody back there with a camera and taken a good photo. Those photos don't demonstrate any technical skill on my part. It is the water is so beautiful, it is so clear, and it's such a gorgeous environment when it's not pouring rain that it's just easy photography.
I was actually born in Okinawa in 74.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
My dad was Air Force, I think, for about 24 years, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And we're only there. I was only there for a year, and then we came back stateside. We went from Okinawa to Minot, North Dakota.
Yep, that would be a change.
That was a change. Holy cow. Yeah,
I loved Okinawa. Every time we did a deployment there, it was great. Went through there a bunch of times. And I met my wife actually when her squadron was in Iwakuni, Japan, and we both spent time together in Okinawa. So she and I spent a lot of our first years dating, running around the island in a rental car, finding what trouble we could get into.
Let's see here. Now, your whole time in the Corps, was it were you in the back seat of the Hornet, or did you have any other involvement with other aircraft?
So all of my operational flying time in the Marine Corps was supposed to be in the F-18. Now I spent time fulfilling some other duties, either in, like you see there, the UH-1 Yankee. I did some work as a forward air controller for 13 months as a ground-based forward air controller. Then when I did my instructor tour in Yuma, Arizona, I was a forward air control instructor. So I spent a lot of time working with the other aircraft and in and out of the aircraft. And then in one of my later deployments to Afghanistan, we did a lot of coordination, I guess is the best term. It really wasn't control. A lot of tactical air coordination out of a C-130. So we'd go ride in a C-130 for a couple hours, put a headset on, and control a lot of other aircraft.
Before we get into the other, back on to the topic of aviation photography,
which is what everyone cares about. No one cares about my sea story. They're all here for the photography.
I don't know. I like to interview veterans as well, so it's all good to me.
They're all lies. Don't believe the sea stories. We make them all up. They teach us a class in how to make up good sea stories.
Now, notice at the bottom of your name where there says Don Eduardo. Well, yeah, we're not there yet.
We're over here to the Don Eduardo part. Yes.
Now you were telling me. Please tell everybody, the whole like 8 people that are watching, what that means, Don Eduardo.
Exactly. So obviously Don Eduardo is a type of tequila, and obviously people who know me know that I enjoy tequila. But is
that why you and Tyson get along?
That is definitely why I have so much tequila envy of Tyson. It's not even funny. And he will tell you that he will post any kind of premium tequila. And the first message he gets from me is, I hate you. And then the second one, how much did that bottle cost? Because I like good tequila. It's like one of those things, once you find a liquor that you're like, wow, if I buy the good version, it doesn't taste like engine degreaser.
Exactly.
But long story short, so my call sign when I was in the Marine Corps was Eddie. And if anyone out there has listened to the Full Disc Aviation interview with me, then they know that the reason I was called Eddie was it was short for Oedipus. And, kind of my caveat that I say is I'm willing to talk about my call sign because there's alcohol being involved. So we have our get out of jail free card there. But my call sign was Eddie, short for Oedipus. And that's because my girlfriend at the time, now my wife, was a little bit older than me, maybe a few days older than me, shall we say. And so that became Don Eduardo when I became a good fan of tequila. So,
and your call sign.
Yes. So Eddie is the call sign, spelled OEDI. So it's also,
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So a lot of people sometimes say Odie. A lot of the guys I've worked with have called me Odie, but it is actually pronounced Eddie, even though it's spelled OEDI.
Now to your shirt, the 3G Aviation Media.
Exactly.
If earlier I typed in, I was had to do some stalking on you to get some information before the before the show, but I went to 3G Media. And that's for sale. And I go, no, that ain't him. Okay. He's got a better one. So 3G Media, when did you start that?
So 3G Aviation Media, we started it about in 2012 timeframe as a kind of a collaboration between three photographers who we all had different, our own photography brand. So I had Fox 3 Photography. That was my line. And the other photographers had their own. And we said, we want to collaborate on some things. And we want to, do photo shoots together and it not be, Fox 3 Photography one day and someone else's photography the other. We need a brand of our own. And then quite frankly, we also realized we wanted to start teaching workshops and start, offering other photographers the benefit of learn from our mistakes and our stupidity, go out there and learn from the 3G workshops.
Now, whenever, like, say if somebody were to want to do one of those workshops, what's all involved? Can they contact you guys through obviously through the website?
They can through the website. And if you go out to the website and look at our workshops page, it has a couple different things up there right now. Obviously the workshops itself is pretty blank. So upcoming workshops, you can click on that. There's not a whole lot scheduled. What you'll see is we have some online workshops that we're starting to work through. And so you'll see there, Joe Kopelman, a good buddy of mine, is teaching a class this Friday on submitting articles to magazines. And then next Friday, I'm teaching a class on, air-to-air photography. And it's really kind of dealing with some small subjects. I laughed when everyone said, hey, can you teach an air-to-air photography class? I'm like, you want me to cram 3 days and, 4 flights into a 1 hour period of instruction on Friday? It's not going to work.
Right.
but if you go to that page and once we're out of the social distancing, no large gatherings kind of timeline, you'll see that we'll have various offerings up there. And you can go look at some of the other workshops that we've had from past years to see what our offerings are for ground-based workshops, air-to-air workshops, a lot of different stuff that we've done over the years.
It's really, really cool. Really
and so
cool.
Those are not just all my photos, and I'll put the plug in for my business partner, Tony Granata, who is the only other remaining G out of the 3Gs. And I haven't fired him yet. I keep trying to. So a lot of the photos on there are Tony's, like that one, that he has up there. So there's some images, obviously mine, with F-18s in it and some images of his. But we've really we've collaborated a lot together, and we enjoy doing that. And last year we brought Joe Kopelman on board. So Joe had been a associate instructor for us, a guest instructor. He'd helped out a lot, and his personality and his drive to put the student first really meshed very well with 3G. And so Tony and I said, hey, Joe, you want to come on board? Because this is such a high-paying position. It is so well sought out across the United States. No, it's not. So yeah, I was happy that Joe said absolutely. So he teaches classes with us, does workshops with us, and partners with us on things.
Before this quarantine stuff started happening and whatnot, how many workshops were you guys averaging?
So we do about 6 or 7 a year. So we try not to overwhelm everyone's schedule with workshops for a couple of reasons. I mean, the first most obvious one is money. I mean, some of the workshops, when you go out there and you do air to air and some of these more involved things, they are not cheap. And there's no point to offer, 12 different workshops, one each month, and then people really don't get a chance to say, okay, I don't have to spend all my money on riding around in the back of an airplane. But we also do it to give people a break throughout the year, to let people enjoy air show season in the middle of summer, go out there with their families, enjoy some family vacation time. Don't feel like they're missing some amazing photographic event, because unfortunately, as much as we say it, and you've even said the same thing, you're going to miss some photography events out there in your life. People don't want to believe that. And all of a sudden they go, how could I have missed your workshop at, whatever flight facility? And I go, because you were on a family vacation. Take your family vacation. That's the important stuff. Those are the things that matter. Doing a workshop with Tony, Doug, or Joe does not necessarily matter in the big picture scheme of things. Sure, I'd love to have people come to the workshop, but let's concentrate on the things that are important for your life.
Definitely. So you got those two things lined up. Hopefully this quarantine stuff will kind of start.
So does my bank account. 3G still has bills. And that's one of the funny things, talking to a lot of people. They go, well, why don't you just pay the bills yourself? And I'm like, yeah, I could. But the purpose of having a photography business is to have it pay for the bills, like the website, and even little things like the scheduling software to schedule those classes online, and to have a whole back end where somebody else takes care of all that, and all you get is an email that tells you who's in your class.
Oh, wow.
That costs money. And so I laugh because I'm like, all right, I'm not doing any client work, and I'm not doing workshops, which are our biggest outlay, because going and renting a cargo aircraft, paying for subjects to show up, things like that, that costs a lot of money. I'm like, yeah, my expenses are a lot less, but they're still there.
Yeah.
There's still money going out, unfortunately.
Yep.
So, but just so everyone knows, we've made a pledge that we're not going to charge for the online classes while we're in this quarantine COVID-19 kind of situation. We don't want to do that. We know that at some point we will have to. We don't know when that is. Hopefully it is well down the road, and so people, get a chance to get to know us, get to experience some of the online classes. But we laugh because I sit there and I look at time, money, subscriptions I have to pay to scheduling services. I'm like, yeah, one of these days we're gonna have to charge for that. It won't be a lot, but it is gonna have to have a $5-10 fee for some of the classes out there.
Yeah, that's fair though.
Well, to me, it's one of those things that it helps kind of keep everything going. So when you tell people, look, it's an hour of your time, can you throw us $5 for that? That allows me to pay someone to have the software, so that I'm not sitting there individually clicking people's appointments and doing stuff like that. Because then it never will happen. Then we won't get these classes done.
Now, as far as dissecting some of these shots,
yes, sir.
let me get back to your website. Hold on a second. Let me pull that up. And
it's back to all the ones that are substandard on like Tony's cool photos of the New York skyline. I laugh because every time you pull up anything involving New York as an aerial helicopter borne shot, that's definitely Tony's. And it's so funny as I sit there and look at that and go, must have been nice.
Helicopters are great platforms.
We
use those at, they were great for the amphibs, like over the Mid-American Museum. Scott will fly his MD-500 and his long ranger. Normally he's we're in the MD-500, but man, we use it for the albatross, the duck, the Apache on amphibs. People kind of chuckle when we talk about that, but it's fun. It's fun though. It is. And but it works out great, especially when they come off the step and they kind of start settling down. You can just hover right around them.
Yeah, it's not as scary as being out there at low altitude in a Bonanza where you're like, wait, I don't have floats. Why am I over the water all of a sudden?
Exactly. At least I got the doors off and I can hopefully get out quick.
Yeah, exactly. I've been down there in a Bonanza. I'm like, this isn't fun. I don't like this. Let's not do the amphibians again.
Well, speaking of camera ships, what are some of the ones that you have used, and which one is your favorite one to use? And I know that's subject to what you're doing.
That's such a loaded one. I will tell you that coming from my jet background, my favorite one is an S211 Marchetti. And that's not because it's the best camera ship for doing anything else, but when I sit in the back of that trainer aircraft, it is my comfort zone because it was my office in the F-18 for 17 years of operational flying. So it feels the exact same. I can talk on the radio. I have about the same visibility. Obviously, the wing positioning is a little bit different, but it's my comfort level. It's where I'm used to. Now, I love shooting out of Bonanzas, love shooting out of Skyvans, Casas, a lot of other things. But I was surprised when I first flew in the Marchetti, I guess 2 years ago now, almost 2.5 years ago. I was surprised how comfortable it felt and how easy it was to roll back into my old habit patterns.
Now, the Skyvan,
yes,
that were you in the Skyvan when you shot the Raptor and the Blues?
So we were actually in a Casa, very similar, obviously,
Okay.
but was able to be a little bit faster, a little bit different configuration because it has the left door, the jump door was off for us.
Oh, cool.
So
Okay.
that gives you the ability to shoot aircraft that are in echelon or shoot true forward quarter off the ramp and do some things there. So that's how you got like the shots you showed in the intro with the Raptor and the Blues there over downtown Beaufort. That's basically because I'm shooting out the left door at that point.
That's cool. Now, so you got the Marchetti. Now it's Marchetti, not Marchetti, right?
Potato.
Yeah, right. Potato, tomato. Right.
I have no idea how to properly pronounce it because I'm sure Mo Aguirre, my good friend of Italian descent, will now tell me that I've totally mispronounced everything. And I'll go, yeah, whatever, whatever. I'm from Alabama. We barely speak English.
Now, this picture of that T6 head on,
right.
is that Scott Germain flying that?
That it is, absolutely. You can't tell from the big grin. that and the fluorescent sunglasses. No.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was flying the CAF T6 behind the Skyvan. Oh, sorry, that was also a Casa. The Casa that we had out there for that event. That was a lot of fun out in Arizona.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, that was one of those events that really we try to have a couple different layers to some of these photo events that we do. And we really now try to draw a distinction between a photo workshop and these air-to-air experiences, because there's not a whole lot of workshop to some of them. And for some of them, it's people's first time. So we say we're trying to get it at a very entry-level price point. So your subjects may be Nanshangs. You might be lucky and get a T6, or that might be for the higher cost, like that one was. It was a sunset kind of event. So obviously Scott was awesome and flew for us. It's always good to have a photographer flying subject because he generally knows exactly what you need to do.
No kidding. Yes, Tyson and I were talking about that with about Kelly Mahon. He's one of the pilots of the Mid-American Museum, and he's he comes from a marketing background, so he knows where to put the airplane in. If you're not in the right spot, he'll kind of take you where he thinks the flight should go.
Exactly.
And then it kind of all gets on the same page there. So it's really, really good. So I remember what Kelly Mahon, he was telling me a story one time that he was doing a shoot. I think he was doing a shoot with a Kodiak, because he did a lot of the original early test flights on the Quest Kodiak,
right.
And I think it's Kodiak. But anyways, he pulled up. Paul Bowen was the photographer. I know, yeah, how cool. And he said he got real close, and Paul switched lenses because or something like that because he was close. But he could see the mirror going tick tick tick. And then he would move positions. It would go tick, 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 move positions. Every 3 clicks, he would move position. And they got down on the ground, and Paul goes, well, one thing's for sure, I don't need my long lens with you.
Yeah. That was my experience with Lee Louderback. And I always tell the joke about being out there with Scott Slocum flying photo ship, and Lee is in perfect formation on us. It's great, except of course everyone is now on their wide angle lens. And the problem is the noise from that Merlin engine is setting off the Vox mic on my headset. I'm like, okay, Lee, we can back it off a little. We're good. So
I've actually had that happen as well. Well, actually, the first air-to-air that I did with the Marchettis, it was the first air-to-air was Chris Kelzer and the guys over there at Victory, and
wouldn't trust that guy, Hornet pilot.
Yeah, well, I take what I can get, But
no, Chris is a good friend. He's a good buddy. He's
an amazing guy. I love being able to call him my friend.
Yeah.
And Ford Broom was my camera ship. We used his E36 with the doors off, and that was his. That was his first time to fly his camera ship.
Yeah.
And I told him, he had all these questions, how close are they going to be? And I go, well, he's a former Marine Harrier driver. He's not going to be far, And but same thing with the Marchetti. He kept on, and I had GoPros on the Bonanzas and the Marchetti as well, and plugged into the cockpit camera on the Bonanza, plugged into the comms. You could hear the Marchetti, and Ford even he goes, I can hear him over the radio, over the intercom.
Yeah,
that was really
close.
Cool.
Yep,
but that it was neat seeing that one come together, because Ford and I talked for several weeks before that. because he wanted to make sure that he did a good job. And of course,
Right.
you know, and you know, we all wanted to keep it safe as usual. So I told him, I go, man, just pretend you're flying a 747. Don't do anything fast. You know, either that or B-52. I'll let you pick.
Yeah, exactly.
And you know, and I go, just be predictable, just be smooth. And he did a fantastic job. And
Well,
so
and people forget that about one of the cardinal rules of being a photo ship is be smooth and predictable. You
yes,
should never surprise your subject with where you're going. And if you think about using half as much control as you want to use to do whatever it
yeah,
is, you're probably still using too much. You just need to be very gentle in all those turns. And then you get guys like, you know, Scott Slocum, who I always laugh because he does it like it's effortless. And
yeah,
you got to
he
realize
does.
how
He
many
really
times
does.
he has flown these events. And I just laugh and I'm like, it's almost no fun flying with you, Scott, because it is so effortless for you. I feel like I can just almost ignore what's going on up front and just concentrate on shooting, you know, because you will do it perfectly.
I've not had I know him well, but I haven't had the chance to fly with him, and hopefully that'll change one day.
You have to. I mean, he helped me out at
Really?
Oshkosh when I did the shoot with Victory. As a lot of things had changed, I felt bad. I land there at Minneapolis and look at my phone, and it's, you know, Chris telling me, guess what? The photo ship's broken. I don't know how this is going to happen. Hey, how about this following list of people? Do you want to fly with any of them? And it was like, no, and no. So, like, none of those guys meet my standard. I'm like, sorry. I'm like, let me shoot the silver bullet. So I literally called up Scott. I'm like, Scott, I know your dance card is probably full, brother. I'm asking a huge favor. What day do you have an opening? And he said, oh, we can do Saturday morning. I'm like, okay, block it off, brother. I need it. You're my only hope.
Was that in the Bonanza or the Baron? Did he have the Baron?
It was in the Baron. So he had the Baron there.
Oh, nice.
And that thing is smooth and shooting
Really?
vertically through the hellhole and doing all that stuff. It was awesome. And obviously having, you know, awesome formation pilots flying your subjects and then having a smooth formation pilot as your photo ship. The airmanship piece of it wasn't my concern. The airspace suddenly became the concern. That, hey, Scott, how much further south can we drag them? Hey, are you guys comfortable? Can we kick you off here? You know, that level of the coordination was all that I had to keep running in the back of my mind, and it made everything easy.
Now, have you seen his? You may have seen already. I got a somehow I got a notification or something off of his Vimeo account of his test footage of the new camera he's got on the nose.
And I have not seen it. I haven't had a chance to go out and look at it yet.
Oh, it's cool. I just watched the video on Vimeo. So if I seen it, I'm assuming it's public. So I'm going to go and talk about it.
Yeah.
But it's super cool. I think it's attached under his nose cone, and it's remotely controlled, and it's housed in a glass bubble, and it's gyro stabilized. And he puts a description up there as far as this many degrees low. G load is this, and max up angle, down angle. Nice. I mean, and then he's shooting his Bonanza, and it's impressive.
That's
Holy
cool.
Cow, man! I mean, talk about.
And I know he's gone through a couple different iterations, and he and I were talking about it. He's got various things cobbled together. He's tried in various high expensive rigs that are all one unit that he's tried, and it's just hilarious to sit there and talk with him through trying all the high end rigs, and then going, I think I can build something smaller and lighter and more cost effective for what I need, rather than this, hugely expensive rig that someone else has designed.
It looks super cool. It really does. I can't wait to see. I know he did an air shoot with Gulfstream, I think, with the G5 or G, one of the latest Gulfstreams.
One of those jets I'll never afford. Like I'll never afford any airplane. Let me be honest here, but I'll never afford one of those. So
Russell Armstrong just hopped on Facebook. He said to say hi. He's hello, Doug. Do you know Russell?
Not very well. So
okay, good. No, I'm joking. No, Russell's a great guy. He has he's got a few airplanes. He's got a gorgeous Beaver, and a J3 Cub, and he's got the Thunderbird painted L39 Albatross.
And that's where I've seen.
Okay, and he asked me and Gary Daniels to document his Classic Jet Aircraft Association event over at Sulphur Springs. Are you there? It looks like you froze up. Let me try. We'll see if you come back for a second. You may have locked up on me. Tell you what, I'm going to kick you off real fast, and I'm going to send you another invite. We'll try that. Kick from studio. Let's try this. This is what we get for doing live stuff. Let me see. Unless you got that same link. Doug, if you can try that same link, I'll try to send you a message here real fast. But we've been talking about a lot of cool stuff with Doug. Let me get that other link here. Invite. There we go. Bring this back up here. I'd like to thank everybody for joining in with us so far today. Got some technical things going on here, which is not to be unexpected. For sure. There we go. There's his message. I sent him another link for him to hop on here. We'll see if we can get him back on here. But as we're doing that, I'll pull his website back up because he's got some really great stuff to be looking at. And let's see here. There we go. Can I get his bigger? Let's try that. There we go. Better to be looking at his photos than my face anyways. All right. Yeah, Doug's been doing photography for a long time, and it's just it's amazing. And as by now you can tell that he's just as nice of a guy that he is a photographer as well. And he's had the opportunity to just form his craft and just take it to the highest possible levels imaginary. So still waiting for him to hop back on with us. Hopefully his internet is not too bad off. We'll get him back up here shortly, hopefully. See if we can't do that. And let me see if I can get a slideshow of his website going. Oh, here we go. Let's try that. See if that's working. There we go. See, McKee Boys said, I am building an Airfix Boeing 727 in the Southwest Airlines colors. Oh, that's cool. I guess you saw my my 7.2 video that I posted just a few weeks ago about the scrapping of it. And that was a neat process to watch, Mickey. I wish I could have been able to document more of that towards the tail end. Since I was working at that FBO at the time, I was only able to get a little bit here and there between that and my, outside schedule. It was kind of a full plate, but it was interesting. It was kind of sad to, for all of us airplane lovers, it's always kind of sad to see that the 720, see any airplane get scrapped. But it's always really cool. It's a cool process once you learn about it and then realize, the pluses to it. That other airplanes are going to benefit from the parts and be able to keep on flying and so forth. So it is pretty cool. Doug is back, but I'm not going to bring him back on. Oh wait, there you are. Okay, what the heck? I'll bring you on. Hey, buddy.
Yeah. I see how it is. No, I was going through my emergency procedures. They're bringing up the phone and going, I can get to it if I do it in Chrome. So yeah, this is. I have to tell the story because this is the funniest thing. So South Carolina, live in a pretty urban part of South Carolina. The internet here is the most unreliable thing in the world. I have better internet at my family's farm in the middle of nowhere, Alabama. And so I'm like, please don't drop during this call. Please don't drop during this call. And of course it dropped. So
it dropped.
My apologies, everyone. Worst ever. Right. I get a capital F.
No, Russell also said, he goes, it was a 2020 jet blast at Sulphur Springs, KSLR. It was scheduled for 10-4 to 10-8. You and Gary Daniels up for another round. Oh,
you should do it again.
Oh, that's a question. I thought he was a
question. No, that's
yes.
Gary Daniels, suspect at best. Now,
Gary.
I love Gary.
Yeah. Oh, you know him?
Yeah.
Oh, that's too cool.
I do. So
he was the first photographer that I interviewed in doing these live streams.
Yeah, he's a great guy. So there's the Garys, as I call them. There's a couple of Garys that are just amazing aviation photographers. I always like hanging out with.
Let's see here. What to talk about now? I know there's plenty that we can. I tell you what. Beside. What have you done much with those full disc guys? Because I haven't. Go ahead.
I have. I love the team over at Full Disc. It's funny. They I feel bad that we did a exclusive air-to-air shoot with them. Basically said, hey, you guys bring all the subjects you want. We're already bringing a it was a Sky, actually it was a Casa again, bring a Casa up to Culpeper, and we'll have, you guys can do your exclusive shoot first. We'll go take some students up later. We'll go do a couple different things. And their shoot went to hell in a handbasket. And it was one of those things. It's a great learning experience, but it's frustrating when I'm standing on the ramp as the aerial director, not taking hardly any photos, trying to keep this aerial ballet going of airplanes that are having emergencies, So we have it was I'm trying to remember who was our first one, but we had an in-flight emergency where the oil pressure dropped, so he immediately starts flying back to the airspace. We miss our next guy's rendezvous because he flies past us thinking that we're headed to the south end of the track, trying to get that lash up done. And so I felt bad for the guys because it's a lot of time and effort and money you put into it. But as those guys will say, and James is the first one to say, it's a great learning experience when everything goes wrong and someone else is responsible for keeping it safe. That you can just sit there and go, now I see why I don't want to be doing this by myself the first time with inexperienced pilots.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I like their concept. I can't wait to get to know more of them because every one of them that's involved with I don't even know how many there are, but they all seem like is there a lot? Every darn one of them seems like such a cool guy,
Well, and there's a core cadre of people that work in the full disc regime, and then there's other people that they bring in kind of as, I don't want to say as freelancers, but they're team members who aren't doing the same level of work because they're participating for one or two events that they can, rather than trying to hit a large multiple number of the events. But they're great photographers. The joke I tell is I'm always glad to find photographers that are, half my age. It's not the usual dynamic where I'm the youngest guy in the room in an aviation photography event. So it's nice to have people that are young and that are really interested in the craft of aviation photography and the business.
Yeah. Now, do they do workshops just like you do? Is that what
so they don't teach. They pretty much do their blog and their production of the Full Disc Aviation podcast and kind of bringing in some of that information and other things to that end. But they're the kind of guys that I would love to see what they could do to teach. It would be awesome.
Really, that would be cool.
Absolutely.
They got some really cool stuff.
Yeah, they do. They really do, and it's fascinating to see the different styles they have. And it's the cool thing when you get a number of photographers all working together, then you get some really, really interesting different takes on the same image from the same aircraft from the same event. So it's kind of interesting.
Now, out of all the airplanes that you shot, let's narrow it down to air. Okay. Now
right.
we've
kind of covered air to air.
Yeah.
Air to air, no one cares about anyway.
Let's go ahead and talk about that boring stuff.
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep on showing the Full Disc Aviation guys.
All right.
But while we're talking about it, what is do you have a favorite airplane that you shot? For me, for a long time it was the Corsair until I shot the Connie. When I shot the Connie, that kind of took it for me.
Yeah, it's tough to say a favorite airplane that I shot air to air. I will tell you that one of my favorite shoots that kind of involves my favorite airplane is being able to shoot a C-130 and to be able to shoot that from another C-130 and to be able to do that at low altitude. And that was probably the neatest because the C-130 you think of as being a really big, unwieldy airplane until it's flown by a former Air Force Special Operations pilot. And you see that thing put through its paces at low altitude. And that was one of those eye-opening moments where I'm like, I've had some pretty aggressive Marine Corps C-130 pilots. I'm like, but that was an impressive thing, and it was a fun shoot. Tony and I were collaborating with a couple Lockheed photographers and a U.S. Air Force PAO that were on board, and that probably is the neatest thing that I feel I've seen up close in an air-to-air shoot.
Have you? Do you know Glenn Watson?
I know Glenn very well.
Okay, good.
Glenn is one of my drinking buddies. So.
I gotta have him on the show sometime.
You do. Cool. So Glenn is a great, fun guy to be around, and I'll tell you, I've always enjoyed running into him out at the International Council of Air shows out at ICAS, specifically when I can pull him away from everybody else and we can just go eat sushi, drink beer, and complain about photography and photographers and talk about how much we hate everybody else. So no, he's a great guy. And while I'm thinking of it, let me step away since my cat's just opened my door. Let me close my door so there's no more background noise. So give me 30 seconds.
I screwed up, Doug. Come on back. screwed up?
No, I'm just saying that the funniest thing is, and everyone's seen this now that we're in the social distancing world where you're in the middle of a Zoom class or whatever, and your cat jumps on the table. So I thought I had closed my door. I thought I had pushed it all the way shut so it would close. Now, not at all. And my black and white cat just barged his way in, like, what's going on? So I could totally hear my wife on her conference call in the other room. So I'm laughing. I'm like, yeah, let me go solve this problem immediately.
Could you see my feed the whole time you were doing that? Or when you
no, because it was all me. It was only me on the feed. So I'm like, I'm going to take this opportunity.
Okay, because what I did, we started talking about Glenn, so I'm going to pull up his website. But I started pulling it up, and
you closed yourself out.
I did. I closed out
nice.
the internet. I was like, oh crap, I got to get that back on. So let me pull up Glenn's stuff. It's Mach Point One Aviation, I think, right?
Yep. Yeah, he's awesome. Personality wise, a lot of people may not know how to deal with him. They may see his online persona, and I even had somebody say, "Is that the guy that had a mohawk?" Well, he actually looks respectable now. Now he's flying for the airlines. Had to get rid of the mohawk. He looks respectable. That's why I really like Glenn. Is he has a Type A personality. He's a great pilot, a great photographer, and he's the kind of person you can sit there and engage with, and you can say, okay, let's talk about really what we're trying to do in that image and why. And that's, to me, that's worth a lot.
I thought it was great when he got the mohawk, and it was just like, dude, you rock. Break that cookie cutter mold.
Well, so, and I'm trying not to throw spears at other people and other organizations, but there is so much groupthink, especially in aviation photography, and every industry has it, or every hobby. I mean, Joe's going to throw a spear at me for calling it an industry instead of a hobby. But every group of people kind of drives people to be a lot like them and to act like them and to think like them. And the fact that Glenn from day one's like, nope, I'm doing my own thing. It has been awesome.
And I love. But anyways, he was what got me thinking about him. Have you seen his C-130 shot of the Blue Angels Fat Albert?
Oh, maybe I haven't. I'm drawing a blank on it.
I don't know if he's probably got it on his website somewhere. We'll see if it flashes up here. But he posted a video of he was shooting from it, and it was so amazingly cool. The C-130, the left wing was behind. It had to be, the props had to be behind the Bonanza. So that's normally not the situation that we like to be in. But to get the shot, sometimes we'll do what we need to do.
Sometimes you have, and guys have talked about, you have to switch roles sometimes, and really you have to sometimes not be the photo lead. You have to let them take the lead. And now you're going to fly off of them and position yourself exactly where you need to be to get that shot.
But it was so cool. And I even asked him one time, and he goes, it's so funny between you and Tyson. You guys both said that one of the most enjoyable things you've done is shooting from a C-130 to another C-130.
Yep.
Out of all the fighters and bombers and this and that, whatever
it is, and maybe so maybe there's always a little bit of I've shot so many F-18s. What's another F-18? But I try not to think that way, because I'll be honest. A cool image I'll never forget is seeing an F-22 behind the Casa this last year for the F-22 Blue Angels shoot. But when I put that shoot versus ripping around over North Georgia in two C-130s and seeing an airplane that I thought of as big and clunky performing like a fighter out there, I'm like, okay, I'm turned 45 degrees and he's turned another 45 degrees. That means he's 90 degrees. It's one of those kind of things.
Wow.
You see the airplane really, really perform.
And Tyson said that straight wing on it was just really, really cool to see.
Yep. And
some of my favorite shots that Tyson has done, Glenn has done, is of the jets, like the F-35 with the Thunderbirds.
Yep.
And also the video clips that he's got from that. Thank God he shot video as well. But there was one air show I can't remember, and I gotta get Glenn on the show. It'd be a fantastic one to talk to. But he was doing one that he showed the Thunderbird, I think, like this, and the F-35 was in even more of a little bit high alpha as well, if I remember correctly. And they were right over the show, and the cloud deck was right there. So I mean, it was marginal, but and you can see the vapor coming off the wingtips of the F-35 because the high alpha, and then but you could hear both of them jocking the throttles back and forth to try to keep keep slow with this Bonanza.
Not where you want to be, trying to be slow with that poor Bonanza.
But you could hear the F-35 howl when he goosed it and went away, and it's just like, God, that had to have been just so cool.
Such a distinctive sound to that engine, and I laugh because we have F-35s here in Beaufort, and people kept saying, the party line was, it's not that noisy. It doesn't sound any different. It's just like F-18s. And the first day they brought them in, all the locals were like,
loud as hell.
What's that noisy new airplane that just flew in? You're like, oh,
that's the single engine F-35.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, well. So
I was reaching out to Glenn big time, but before there you go, right there.
It is. Yep.
There it is.
Now I do remember that one because I remember going, holy cow, that's cool.
I was reaching out to him a lot, going before we did the air-to-air shoot, because it was my first time to fly with the doors off of the Bonanza as well when we did the Marchetti shoot. So I was asking him, I go, is it bumpy? Is it loud? Is this, that, whatever? And I probably bugged him about probably 23 times more than I should have. And he finally just said, just take the doors off and fly the damn thing, And I was like, okay. Okay, buddy. Thank you. I'll go do it.
Well, and there's something to be said about that with aviation photography. And I kind of got in this discussion with a number of people inside of our 3G photography group for all the people that I call repeat offenders, people who've been to our workshops a number of times, good friends of ours that we all get in there and talk photography. And they were asking about specific parts of, briefing aviation photography and specific things about what procedures do you go through and all that stuff. And I'm like, you talk to people about airplanes and you talk to them about formations, questions, because it's one of those things that you can't condense 20 years of flying and, another 5 years afterwards of aviation photography and all these other things. You can't condense that into what am I going to say in 1 hour? That's experiential. It's a comfort level. It's being used to doing this and having done it so many times that you go, I know what I'm supposed to say next. And if I forget, I'll look at my cheat sheet, but I don't run down my briefing cheat sheet, so it's those kind of things.
Now you and I have talked, and we're not going to get too negative on this subject, but
I was afraid you were going to take a long drink for this one. I know it's coming.
Should have taken my meds.
I won't drop any F-bombs. That's a different podcast. Good. I can do down. I'll keep this family oriented here.
That's when we'll get Tyson on here and we'll get the tequila flowing.
Oh yeah, that will be bad. that will be not safe for work. That will definitely get the E for explicit on there. Yeah.
I might not be able to monetize that one. We'll see.
Exactly.
But you and I have had conversations before as far as kind of like what you hinted on earlier a while ago, as far as how the perception and stigma, whatever it is, how some aviation photographers are. And some of them, most of them are super, super nice guys.
Yes.
Like you, Tyson, Glenn, stuff like that.
95% of the people are awesome in aviation photography.
But there are the few that are not all that great, and I think that's why we enjoy so much, hanging out. Why I enjoy so much hanging out with guys like you and you spend time with the full disc guys and Tyson and just all those guys, and it's so cool to be able to collaborate.
Well, that's exactly the point. So the tough part in a lot of these organizations, and I'm really trying to not badmouth any specific organization here at all.
Careful.
But the fact is, any organization is going to kind of have its own business rules and its own way of looking at things and its own way that it wants to mold you to be like them. So the tough part is if you're someone who already has a personality as an outlier, like Glenn and I, you're already a type A who's pushing up against the walls of whatever people try to put you inside of. You're not going to fit in well in those organizations. Now, that's not to say that there aren't people in some of these large aviation photography organizations that are not great friends of mine. Because I'll tell you, Gary Daniels, Gary Edwards, Craig Swansea, a lot of those guys, Glenn Bloor, a lot of those guys that I know that I really, really like and really respect are also in the organization because it has people that they want to interact with. And I think the toughest thing is, and the full disc guys and I have talked about this, is find a group of people that think like you and interact in the ways you do with aviation, with the pilots, with the industry of air shows, and hang out with those people. Because if you hang out with people that don't view the world the way you do, it's going to make it twice as stressful because all of a sudden they're gonna be like, well, are you wearing your vest? Why aren't you wearing your branded shirt?
God.
Things like that. And you go, I don't care. This is the world I want to operate in. I'm not gonna. I don't. Those things don't matter to me. Now, the thing I will say is, you should surround yourself with photographers that want to collaborate, photographers that will joy in your successes, and that even if you absolutely scooped them, and I'll use Glenn as a great example. That Raptor Blue Angel shoot, that was his. That really should have been his. Shouldn't have been mine.
No kidding. Why is that?
He had talked about it. He had floated the idea to people. He had done a lot of the legwork, putting airplanes and the right photo ship and the right people and everything together, because he'd shot the solos together with the F-22. And I'll tell the story now. And he'll probably deny it and say it's not true at all. We're sitting there at ICAS in December, drinking beer, of course. And I looked at him and I go, hey man, I offered you a seat on the event. You couldn't because you were flying. I feel like I scooped you. Did I totally yank this out from underneath you? He's like, no, man, no, you didn't. No. I'm like, dude, did I? Yeah, you did. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I go, you telling me that doesn't make me feel any better. Actually makes me feel worse.
Right.
But I'm glad you told me that I pulled this out from under you, because I've been feeling crappy about it the whole time. And now I know I should be feeling crappy about it. But my point is, surround yourself with people who are going to join your successes. And Glenn did a great job of that. He was like, awesome. You guys knocked it out of the park. The video looked awesome. That some guys, Diamond 9, out of the UK, they did the video. He didn't say anything negative to me or to anyone else. And those are the people you want to surround yourself with, not people that go, oh man, I can't believe they got to shoot all those L-39s at Jet Blast. You don't want those kind of photographers in your inner circle. You want people that are going to build you up. They're going to push you for that next thing. And they're also going to say, hey, yeah, you totally beat me out. I wanted to shoot that F-35, but you got it before I did. Good on you.
There are times, depending on what the subject matter is, but there are times to where I think it's just naturally harder to go, good for you.
Well, there's two parts to that, and I'll be honest with the first part, and this is what I really try to hammer home on people to not do. The first one is when you look at it and you blatantly know there's either a mistake or something else you probably, and I say probably, wouldn't have made, and you go, oh man, I probably could have screwed up and done better than that photo shoot. But the problem is you don't know. You don't know what they were fighting for environmentals. Maybe the clouds were not working out for them. Maybe it was really turbulent and bouncy. There's a lot of things like that. That there's always things you don't know about what went into the shoot. And so I laugh. Now that Greg's checking in, I'm really going to be in trouble.
That's great. How?
Yeah, exactly. Well, so I was laughing seeing that, because there's always things that other people have shot that you go, oh man, I could have done that, and you just don't know. You don't know if you could have done it as well. You think you could have. So give that person the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah,
and I try to explain that to people and say that joy in their successes, even if it's something you would have thought you would have done better. Move on, drive on, and the second part of it is, if you could do better, then do better. And I tell people this all the time when they send me a photo and go, oh, I can't believe these people either had that photographer, hired that person, did that as a photo ship. I'm like, well, why didn't you do it? Why didn't you go out there? And why weren't you the person on the ramp shooting that? Yeah. You obviously didn't either A, hustle, B, know the right people, or C, really care about it. You just want to sit back and throw spears. So I don't want to be a part of that crowd.
I've had my YouTube channel for about 10 years now. So the keyboard warriors is something that I've gotten used to.
Yeah.
But
they're out there everywhere.
Yeah. But sometimes if I've been shooting a lot, I still got my full-time gig and I got the family stuff. And, I think we all know that we stretch ourselves a little thin at times.
Oh yeah.
And I might be on there and I might be editing and I'll get a notification on my phone, whatever, through YouTube, and I'll look at it. And this one guy goes, the music absolutely sucks. You shouldn't have used that. So I'll blast him back. And by this time, maybe I've had a couple drinks and I'll blast, so normally I'll let it go. And if they make a bad remark on one of my veteran interviews, I'll block them in a heartbeat. But this guy, it was kind of recently too. And I go, just like always, I went to your channel. You have no videos. So you don't walk the walk. You have nothing for me to learn from this now. Exactly. And he chimed back. He goes, dude, I was just making a recommendation. I really didn't mean for you to take it back. And I go, you got to understand what it sounds like,
Well, and so I'm gonna hit on a point there that I learned after probably not all 17 years of flying, but one of the most important things, and people forget this because there is no tone when you're typing on the internet, and people don't understand how what you really mean, because they don't hear how you're saying it. But the words "I recommend" are amazingly disarming. Or to come in with a whole level of humility and say, I don't know what your thoughts for the music choice are, but I might have chosen X. I hate to always sound like the diplomat in some of these things, but there's especially when amongst photographers who we think that we're crafting a really nice image and we think we're investing a lot of time and effort into it. Sometimes when you see a glaring error, absolutely you should go to your friends, or you should go to people that you think you're on a peer level with and say, I would have done it differently. But you really need to couch it in, I recommend, or what, can you explain to me what you were thinking, because my thought was X.
Yeah, exactly. And I think if people were to take that into consideration, as far as, how is this going to come across?
Yeah.
And I wish that I could say that I am really perfect at that, but I'm not. Yeah, nobody is. But man,
look at my Facebook feed and see how many people I've unfollowed recently because we argued over stupid things. Which is unfortunate. And I'll use the COVID-19 crisis is a great example of a problem we all have on social media, and it's that we cannot discuss things reasonably, and we really have a hard time hearing what the other person is saying, and not constantly preparing our argument against them, but actually reading what they said on social media. Maybe actually clicking on the link they offered us, even though it might be from a news outlet we don't like, or a publication we don't like, or a person who we don't respect, whatever. Actually taking the time to go, okay, I'm going to see why they have formed this opinion. And in photography, I've found a lot of times people will take somebody else's blog post, YouTube video, social media post, and they'll run with it as gospel. And I ran into that with the Nikon Z7. When I first bought the Nikon Z7, right when it came out, people wanted to tell me what a terrible camera it was. I'm like,
really?
Sure is expensive for a terrible camera. You think Nikon would have figured that out? Boy, did they fool me. But so I didn't even have an aviation shoot lined up immediately when I bought it. I was actually going on vacation. So I took it out to Colorado on vacation. It was Colorado. And I shot a bunch of stuff out there and tried a bunch of different things, and basically took every negative comment people had told me as soon as I said, hey, I bought a Z7. I went out there and I'm like, funny, I just demonstrated that's not true. There's no color banding in this image. And it's just bald blue skies in Colorado with not a single cloud. Or, hey, here it is with blown out, data shooting in a dark cave. And I went ahead and did the shadow recovery. And here's the kind of, artifacts that are in there, not what you're talking about. So I think there's always, there's two problems. That there's the naysayers, and there's the fanboys, and they're both problematic, because I've had the fanboys when I've tried to raise a valid image or valid concern in an issue. I say, hey, here's my image and here's the problem. I think it's a camera problem. They're like, no, you must have screwed it up. I'm like, well,
it's your fault.
Well, I'm like, point to me what I did wrong, because you're right. I screw up a lot. There's a lot of things I get wrong. But help me get better. So tell me what I did wrong. And if they can't do that, I go, well, now it's happened 4 times with the same type of lens, and it's been the same body and different lenses from different rentals. I'm like, it's one of those things you start having this discussion, and then, I go, okay, fanboys, I realize you didn't like me poking at your brand or your favorite company or your favorite lens.
How dare you say Canon sucks?
Yeah, well, and I never do unless my friend's a Canon shooter. No, but it happens all the time, and it's just that fanboyism frustrates me in photography, where I think we ought to be very honest with each other and say, no, you were the limitation, not the lens. Or no, sometimes the lens is the limitation because it's technology and it's designed, and some of these concepts are made by guys that are sitting in Japan looking at 10,000 images and wanting to make it compensate for all of them and be good, equally good in all those kind of things.
Yeah.
And it may not be.
What's funny though, that philosophy or that frame of mind carries over into everything else. As far as you got the guys that the professional guys out there that are willing to take constructive advice and learn from it and get better. If you're racing cars, if you're whatever, if you're racing boats, if you're building model airplanes, it doesn't matter. But then again, you got the other guys like, I don't really like the Toyota Supra. And then other guys like, Toyota is one of the best cars that's been around for whatever, mine's pink, Yeah.
So it goes back to my argument about the use of the term professional and the baggage that comes along with it, because there are certain organizations and people out there that if I come up and say, hey, I'm a professional aviation photographer, they go, you've got a day job. You're not a professional aviation photographer.
No one can make a living at that.
Yeah, I'm like, apparently you haven't tried to figure out this aviation photography yet, because there's like 5 people in the world making making a living at it.
Yeah.
But I say, okay, so maybe I'm not a capital P. I'm a lowercase p. I'm a professional aviation photographer. I go out, I have a business, I produce a known quantity, I treat my clients well. I interact with the next generation of aviation photographers and try to pass on my skills. I do anything someone in a profession would do.
Yeah.
And if you want to argue with me about, is it my primary income? No, because I have a house and a fairly new car, so I got to make payments.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you realize how expensive health insurance is?
Yeah, exactly. It's like I do have a day job, absolutely, but it goes back to the discussion about 3G and Fox 3 and creating a business structure. I have a business structure there for a reason, because it's not a hobby. It is truly a business, and it has to pay the bills. I can't keep taking a loss at it, or else it's a hobby. And the IRS looks at me and goes, "Nice hobby, no deduction."
Yeah, right.
So it's one of those things where you step back and you say, I need to treat it like a business because I'm a professional. And if you want to lose your mind over, do I do it full time or not? I'd love to do it full time. And I tried to coming out of the Marine Corps. And my wife pretty much was like, no. She's like, I like this house, and I like the fact that I have a car that was built in this millennium, and I'm not driving some beater around. She's like, so you're gonna have a real job, and then once we cover all the bills, you can talk about whatever you want to do with your photography on your own.
You can go play. Yeah.
Well, and she's really supportive of the business, but she also, we have drawn that line that there's 3G expenses, there's Fox 3 expenses, there's Doug's playing with camera expenses, and she's like, whatever you want to do with your money on that, that's fine, but that is not the family money. The family money does not go buy you a new Z7, So.
Right. Speaking of what you just said as far as real jobs, every now and then I'll get that question as well. And somebody goes, "Do you do this full time?" And I'm like, "No, I don't. Just as much as I can, you know." And they go, "What do you do full time?" And I go, "I'm a line guy." And they go, if they're not aviation oriented, they go, "What's that?" And I go, I pass gas for a living.
Yeah, exactly.
And they kind of chuckle and they go, well, "Still, what do you mean?" And I explained to them, I tow fuel airplanes. We're like a gas station for airplanes, whatever. And they're like, "Oh, okay. So you're in the field." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm at the very tail end, low level of the aviation industry doing line service, But I tell you, I'm one of the grunts out there with all my buddies,
But like a lot of other things, we always used to laugh in the Marine Corps because we'd make fun of our bulk fuel guys. Yeah, the guys that drove the big truck full of avgas or full of in this case JP5 over, put it actually into the fuel pits so that we could have fuel pit gas to put in the airplane. But like a lot of things, there's really interesting perspectives you get being a line guy or being somebody who sees this wide variety of aircraft come in that most of us who only go to an air show. We only see what's catered to us, what's given to us in the performance. And as a line guy, you're probably like, well, I really don't care about those flashy airplanes, but you know what, that, Citabria over there, that's a pretty cool airplane, or, all the different, things that you see transit through there on day in and day out.
It was so funny. Last year, about a year ago now, it was Oshkosh was just starting. Okay. So the time frame there.
Yep.
And Jay, when the guys up at work, he goes, we joke around with each other, in the line check, and he goes, "Okay, smart guy, what kind of plane is that?" And I look out the window and it's a 172 going down the runway, and or down the taxiway, and I go, "Very funny," because I know he knows what that is. And he goes, and I go, "Ha, very funny." He goes, "No, really, what?" He goes, "Not that airplane. What's that airplane?" And I look even further out the window, and I go, "That's a de Havilland Mosquito," and I know who owns that.
Yeah,
probably who's flying it right now. And it was Stu Dawson. Stewie brought it in, and it was just a fuel stop from they're all making their way up to Oshkosh.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden we go out there. Then La Pistorella, I always mess up the name, but Rod Lewis's Mustang landed and stuff. And it was, of course, and that it was really interesting. But you're right, to be around it, to be involved in it all the time, it helps the opportunities sometimes.
Well, and so I'll address that because that's one of my favorite complaints from people, that they say you have an unfair advantage. I have an unfair advantage. And they go, "Yeah, you have an unfair advantage. You flew in the back of an F-18 for all those years. And so you just were able to take all those photos. That's an unfair advantage." I'm like, I seem to remember that being my job was to fly in the F-18, just like
Oh,
your job is to be on the
freedom,
line,
buddy.
Yeah. Well, not even that, but I'm just like, I wasn't back there just sitting around twiddling my thumbs going, hey, what photo can I take next? No, I had a real job to do. There were some cool opportunities where I got to say, okay, I can stop doing that job for about 30 seconds, take a photo, and then go back to doing that job. But there's so many things that are all about the opportunities that are in front of you. I mean, life hands you a box of opportunities. What you do with it is up to you. And just because you are jealous of somebody else's access because they're a line person, you don't see the pouring rain when they're out there fueling a biz jet from somebody who's just grumpy and wants to get out of there and doesn't want to be at that FBO. And you don't see all the other parts to this, just what seems to you to be a really cool way to get aviation access. And you're like, hey man, there's days you couldn't pay me enough money to be out there.
Yeah. Oh gosh, when it's freezing rain. And I've thought about doing a video because you probably have gotten this question a lot more than I have. But when somebody how did you get to be an aviation photographer? The video and I'm going to do it one of these days. I want to have, bring my camera to work, and I've one of the guys, so I'm going to be very serious. And I say, well, you got to make sure you put your rubber gloves on and you fill up the dump hose to the laboratory. And then you go through the whole process of dumping a lav on an airplane.
That's how I became an aviation photographer.
Yeah, because it's funny because I work over at the McKinney Airport, and every now and then, it doesn't happen all the time, but every now and then somebody will come in and say, are you Eric Johnston? And I'm like, yeah. So we get to talking and stuff like that, and it's kind of neat, but I might have to walk away from them to go dump a lav or fuel an airplane or whatever, and I probably smell like jet fuel when I'm talking to them. So it's a non-glamorous thing, but man, I tell you what, kudos to all the line guys out there. Not just toot my horn, but I mean those guys are.
We used to laugh in the Marine Corps. I mean, you sit there and you go out and you do this great mission and you get to fly and do all these really cool things. And you would throw your keys basically back to your maintenance department. And whether it was your power line guys who are out there doing the power plants and the line work, your airframers that are out there, fixing all of the infinite airframe problems you can have with a plastic airplane, your avionics guys that also it's an electric jet. So guess what? That's always going to break, and basically you throw the keys back at them and go, have it fixed by tomorrow. I'm taking it out again. There's so much of aviation that people just don't understand and all the hard work that goes into it.
Very true. Very, very true. Man, oh man. I tell you what, along that same lines though, if somebody were to come up to you and seeking advice as far as how to get started, how to get a leg up or foot in the door, as far as becoming it's always the air-to-air stuff.
You're going to ask me a studious question here, so I'm going to have to put on my glasses.
Yes,
because I'm offering advice here.
Well, if I were to offer any advice,
exactly.
People come up and they say, "How can I do what you're doing?" And I tell them, I go, "Well, the biggest thing is just Tyson and I covered this as well. It's for me, it's building rapport, building relationships with the aircraft owners and pilots. And sometimes you got to get dirty doing it as far as sweeping the floors and whatnot. What is there any advice that you would have for? Well,
so I'm going to laugh because Greg Howell's sitting on here, and so I'm going to use him as an example. So here's how you get into it: you be a real human being, and people go, well, what do you mean by that? I'm like, well, you go up and you talk to people, and you don't just talk about aviation. You talk about people in common. You talk about sports, talk about the weather. I don't care. Don't make the first thing out of your mouth as a photographer be, hey man, how can I shoot your airplane? Yeah. And that's actually in a sense, the tactic I took with Greg was, hey, this is somebody that has a really cool airplane. I want to get to know, we know people in common. We know, some collaborative efforts in common. I just need to get to know him and spend some time at ICAS, as everyone's walking the booth and all the photographers are schlepping themselves around. Hey, look at me, I'm a photographer. The two most reviled professions at ICAS are lawyers and photographers. It's probably photographers then lawyers. But it's one of those things where you just spend some time and you talk to people and you get to know them, and you roll in and you say, that this is what I can do. This is who I am as a photographer, but I'm not going to start off with how can I fly with your airplane and how can I do, something really that would satisfy me and may not give you anything that you want because you probably already have cool photos of it.
Yeah. That's a very good point. Just walk up and, keep an open mind and don't be too self-focused on one thing.
Well, and so many people think it's like closing the deal. And I keep telling people, I'm like, no, it's about being a real human being. And so it's about being a friend, being someone who's trustworthy, because every single one of my cool opportunities have not been off of me giving someone the elevator sales pitch about 3G Aviation Media or Fox 3 photography. They've
Yeah.
all come through either professional military relationships that I've had where people go, I know how he was in the Hornet. He was one of my instructors. He taught me a lot. I can trust him as a aviation photographer. Or it's from people that I've met in the aviation industry where I just sit down and say, hey, tell me about your airplane. Tell me about you. Why are you in aviation? What do you do for your real job? Because, are you an airline pilot? Did you come from industry? Is it a fractional ownership for the airplane? Finding out all those things that sometimes, at least to us, it's interesting in aviation. Maybe it doesn't make a great aviation story to everyone else, but that being someone's friend really gets your foot in the door and really gives you an opportunity that they can go, okay, I know who this guy is. He isn't just hustling me for a photo. He cares about my airplane. He cares about the story he's going to tell with his imagery, and he's going to craft a product rather than just get everyone, take some photos and walk away. I'm never going to see him again.
Yeah. One of those, really, everybody knows that I got a strong bond or relationship with the guys over Mid-America, but another relationship of that I've built that really comes to mind is with Chris Kelzer and Victory Aviation.
Yep.
And we don't know. I don't even remember how we really met. I don't remember. But anyways, it quickly grew into a strong bond. And, or at least that's how I like to think of it. And it's funny because whenever we're not shooting, that's when I put my line guy hat on. I might be fueling the airplane, towing this and that, and just doing whatever we can do, helping out, getting the client strapped in or whatever. And then I'll put the camera down, pick up the camera, put the camera down, pick up the camera. And it's so neat because I remember one time I called him. He was back home up north. And he and his wife were outside walking their dog, and they're walking in the snow and stuff like that. He goes, hey, Eric, how are you? This and that. And he goes, I got my wife with me. And I can hear his wife, who I've never spoken to much. She goes, hey, Eric. I can hear her. I'm just like, that's what you want.
Aviation friendships. I always try to explain this to some of the photographers, that aviation friendships to me are worth far more than any of the photos that I will ever get. And Chris is an example, somebody that, I served with on active duty. We knew each other, didn't know each other real well. We had a lot of friends in common. It's not like we were in the same squadron together, but, knew a lot of people in common. And it's just cool to now, funny, to be back together all of a sudden again and go, I thought I was never going to see any of these guys that I worked with. 5 years later, I'm like, why am I briefing with you again? But there's those cool friendships that you get to rekindle, or in my case, like a lot of times, people I won't see until Sun and Fun, Oshkosh, events like that. So that's kind of the tough thing for me this year, and I know for a lot of the aviation community is we're used to seeing people maybe twice a year, maybe 3 times a year if you go to ICAS and do air show stuff. And we really miss it. Like I really missed sitting down at Sun and Fun and, drinking beer with a bunch of other photographers and pilots and aviation nuts and just having a good time. Were some cool photos going to come out? Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
We had some cool photo ships lined up, had some cool subjects lined up. But I don't care about losing that. I care about not being able to sit down and eat a London broil and drink some beer and, and have a good time.
That's just it, because talking to some of the photographers and other names will come up, just like you said. And lots of times I will revert back to a non-aviation related memory that I have with that other guy, that photographer, the pilot or whatever, and going, oh yeah, I remember going fishing with him, or like Scott Glover. I mean, he's over in Mid-America. Yep. He started collecting tractors, and he's got this old man. I can't remember. I see what it is. I can't remember the name of it, but it's this old antique thing, and the priming and the starting, the kicking the flywheel, and all this stuff. And I just thought it was the coolest thing. And it was over at his ranch, and or at his strip. And Andrew Christ was there, and they get it going. We get it at it's boom, bang, backfire, and all of a sudden, so he puts it into high gear, if you want to call it that. And he and Andrew hop off, and I'm going, but that's the memory that I'm never going to forget.
Well, and I tell a story from Sun and Fun that there's a number of us that we actually get together, and sometimes it's on one of the night air show nights, and everybody is out shooting, getting their perfect images out there, and we're sitting in the beer tent, and we just it is our forced ability to just not care. We say we're not going to chase the image, we're not going to chase the airplane. Me and Jason and Matt and a bunch of other guys will all just sit down, have a beer or 3, sit there and just talk about our lives, talk about what's going on, and maybe not even talk aviation, maybe not even talk about what we're doing that week, just catch up with each other and really force ourselves to not be a part of the rat race, to take a step back and to enjoy the company of other photographers and even beyond photography, just other human beings. Because, friends of mine that are private pilots will come in and we'll all sit there in the beer tent and drink beer. And, it's a cool social event, and you say, I'm not gonna go to Sun and Fun to get the perfect image. I'm gonna go to Sun and Fun because it's a social event.
Because Doug's there.
Yeah. Oh, I am known for holding court. So Joe and all those guys will tell you, I am the first guy to go. We're going to the bar and I'm buying the first round. And of course, that guarantees they'll have an audience.
What I love about you, and I've talked about this before, about what you do, what you guys do at Sun and Fun, is that some days you'll say you got 30, 40, whatever $1,000 of camera gear charging over here for the next day shoot. Say, okay, tomorrow shoot, cell phone shots only.
Oh yeah. Well,
I love that.
I throw that at Jason McElmore does that to me all the time, because I will invariably have a day where I'm like, all right, I'm going to get a cool sunrise or sunset shot or do some stuff out here. He's like, isn't tomorrow cell phone day? I'm like, oh, son of a gun, it is. All right, I'm only going to show up with my smartphone.
Do you realize what I have lined up today?
Exactly. Well, but he and we always have that same laugh, that there's times that we've shot either an image that we thought was going to be a throwaway image, or an image that we just shot on a smartphone, that suddenly we went back and edited or took that image that we're like, yeah, that airplane, that Cub with a tent next to it, that'll never amount to anything. And you're like, that's really a good image. I can really make that a good image editing it. And all of a sudden you're like, I didn't really put any effort into that one. So that one just fell in my lap. I'm not the photographer that I think I am here, crafting these precision images,
Actually, I think it's just the contrary. I think that's when your true creative juices come out.
And it may be. It's one of those things you feel so frustrated because there's those images that you really put a lot of effort and a lot of time into, and all of a sudden those just can't compare to this image that you go, well, I just saw that in passing, set up my camera, took the shot, and then went back and edited and realized what I'd actually captured. So.
I remember the first time that I did fly, the only time that I flew with Glenn Watson, Jim Wilson. Do you know Jim Wilson?
Yep. I know Jim real well.
Really, really talented guy. Amazingly talented guy. Jim was in the back of the Bonanza shooting video. Glenn was shooting stills. We're shooting a Baron and a Mustang, and that's one of the things I love about Glenn and his formations. He would put up dissimilar formations.
Yep.
And that's, for me, that I like that, instead of seeing the lineup, like Tyson, he's got the OCD working and he's got everything perfect. I like to say, make it as wonky and weird as possible. And I want to be there for that. But it was so cool. The Mustang looks great. He pulls up, and then the Baron, when he pulled up and you're looking at it going, man, you get the gear sucked up on the Baron. It looks really good. Well, I was sitting in the front right seat. I wasn't even supposed to be on that flight. Another photographer was. Don't even know who it was. But anyways, he was kind of bummed out that he was going to be sitting up front shooting through glass,
right?
The window, and he goes, "Nah, I don't want to go." Well, Glenn looks at me. He goes, "Dude, you want to go?"
Yes.
And I go,
"I'll be right there."
I go get my GoPro. He goes, "No, get in." I go, "You got it." So
yeah, exactly.
We went, and so I was, the extra set of eyeballs looking for traffic. But I'd frame up my cell phone every now and then, and I'd be looking and make sure it's in frame, keep looking. I'm rolling the whole time. And we go out for Mexican food later on, and I'm like, "Man, look at these shots. These are really cool." And Jim was like, "Yeah, they're okay. They're check out this." And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, yours are really a lot better." But it was fun. So, man. So besides the webinar, and you froze up again. Doggone it. I got to get you back on here again. Let me see if I can get you back up here pretty quick, man. Let's I'm going to kick you out of here. I don't want to ban you. I just want to kick you off from the studio. And we're so close to wrapping up too. Doggone it. I got to kick you off. Now let me go. There you go. Get some more eye candy there for people to look at while they bring you back up. We're just getting ready to wrap up. But another long interview. I appreciate you guys tuning in for it. Hope you guys have enjoyed it. We covered a lot of stuff. So it seems to be these are a lot of fun. I enjoy it. I hope you guys are enjoying watching these things as much as I'm enjoying doing them, because it is back in a second. He goes, let me see. Okay, he's still not back yet. So let me see here. I wonder if he still got the same link. The same link should work. I'll send him another link just in case. Yeah, Doug texted me. He goes, So it is bugging him. He's frustrated that his internet's not doing all that great. But we'll bring it back in just so we can say goodbye. How about that? But if you guys feel free to chime in with any questions. I see Mickey Boys is posting a lot on there. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you tuning in. So let's see if we can get Mr. Dougie back on here. But yeah, go to his website. It is mock. No, that's Grace. It's what's his darn website? It is fox3photo.com. And that's his one. Then the other one is 3gaviation.com, I believe it is. So go check them out, and looking at maybe doing one of those workshops. And it looks like Doug is back online. There he is.
Let me know if I need to put the earbuds on because I'm on the cell phone backup.
What? What?
I said, let me know if I need to put the earbuds on.
I can hear you.
I don't like you anymore. You're not funny.
I'm out of here.
Exactly. I quit. This is the worst interview ever. I'm putting on my hat and going home. I don't have the branding hats, Tyson hat stuff.
Nor the do.
No, well, yeah, that's true. I didn't just slick everything off. I still like my hair.
It's funny. Somebody posted that on the Facebook, and I go, "Hey, live chat with Tyson." And one guy, Jason Fortbacher, he said, I think it's Jason. He goes, Eric should go shave bald during the thing. Yeah, do it. Well, I was like, what the? I keep it short anyway. So I told my wife, I go, hey, I need you to shave. She goes, no, I'm not doing that. She goes, I have to look at you. And this is bad enough as it is. So
yeah, my wife, of course, knew me when I was a lieutenant in the Marine Corps. And she knew what I looked like with really short hair. She's like, you look terrible like that. So no, do not ever go back to that haircut or shave your head ever again. Okay, you're right. I laugh at you. I had one of my squadron executive officers, second in command of the squadron, when I was a young captain. He ordered me to grow my hair out. And mind you, the XO is usually the guy yelling at all the Marines saying, get a haircut, shine your boots, look more squared away. He actually looked at me and goes, Eddie, grow your hair out. Okay, all right, XO, I'll grow my hair out.
That's awesome. Well, it's so funny because right when you froze up, I go, we're just getting ready to probably hop off on this too. So I go, let me get it back online just so we can get back on, just so we can tell them goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Get it back so you go, see it, get out of here. Yeah, sorry about that. This is standard Beaufort, South Carolina, in the middle of a thunderstorm. I think that the string and the cans that are holding the internet together here are going down.
Well, before we lose you again, I'm going to sign off here. But thank you so much for taking the time out. I appreciate it, man.
I've really enjoyed it, and look forward to catching up with you this year once we get out of the lockdown.
Yeah. Hey, it sounds like they're doing the Son of Fun later on, maybe October.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We'll see. I don't know if they're going to roll it to October, if they're just going to roll it 2021. I've been trying to hear exactly what's going to go on because I know they're doing a couple different things. So it'll be good if we can at least have some kind of good aviation gathering. So
that'd be cool. I would like. I've never done Son of Fun, so
you need to come down.
Yeah,
just for the beer alone. Don't worry about the photography. Just for the beer.
I'll leave the cameras at home. I don't need them.
Exactly. I got my cell phone. Hey, like I tell a lot of people, hold yourself to a specific, skill sets that you want to work on, and maybe smartphone photography is your thing.
I'm going to do all vertical shots just to piss y'all off.
As long as the horizons aren't level. If it's vertical portrait orientation and the horizon isn't level, then I'll be happy.
A little crooked, send everyone to Tyson. All right, brother. Thank you so much, man. Good talking to you.
It's good to talk to you.
All right, bye-bye.